For those of you watching this on YouTube, there were some technical problems with the camera last time, so this is a re-recording of the final 15-20 minutes of the lecture leading up to the First Lateran Council. So one of the main, one of the most significant occurrences during these 250 plus years between the Fourth Council of Nicaea and the First Lateran Council was the beginning of the Crusades. And to better understand why the Crusades were called to begin with, we need to look at a little bit about some of the politics, some of the trends that were happening at the time. In the 800s, 900s, early 1000s, the Byzantine Empire had experienced a great renaissance, a great rebirth, and the borders of the empire had been pushed back to places that they had given up in the 600s. So it was a point of strength in the early 11th century during the reign of Basil II. He was a great emperor and a great conqueror. However, he had no sons, he had no offspring. There's no record that he ever married. And when he died in 1025, his younger brother, came to the throne, who was much less competent and much less interested in being the emperor. And from that point forward, for the rest of the century, more or less, the empire shifts, and the great strength of the military starts declining as Basil II's brother and then his daughters and their various husbands seek to concentrate more of the power within the capital itself, within Byzantium itself, and the great threat is always that a powerful military ruler will displace a weak emperor. So decreasing the funds of the military generals, decreasing the size of the army, was one way to preserve weak emperors in the post, but at the same time weaken the empire. During this 50-year phase of a declining military strength within, a new group of people arrives on the scene in the Middle East, namely the Turks, the Seljuk Turks. And they are Sunni Muslims. And when they approach when they start this as a nomadic people, as a people moving into the region, they are not primarily interested in conquering the Byzantine Empire, but more so, they are much more interested in displacing the Shiite caliphate in Egypt, based out of Egypt. And that is their goal. The Byzantine Empire is in the way that could pass through. And so, as they're going through skirmishes, and a new emperor at the time, Romanus IV Diogenes, he seeks to stop this passage of the Turks into Byzantine territory, and in the process takes them on outside of a little town in what is now Armenia, Manzikert, the Battle of Manzikert, and on August 26, 1071. And reflecting back on it, it seems that the Byzantine army could easily have won the battle had it not been for duplicity within the ranks of the officers, and half of the army abandoning the field just when victory was at hand, and causing the defeat and the rout of the Byzantine army. Romanus IV signs a peace agreement with the Turks, agreeing to pay them so much gold every year, and that the Turks will leave them in peace. But Romanus IV, given the dynamics of the imperial court in Constantinople, was quickly out of favor, and his peace agreement was not kept once he was deposed, once a new emperor took over. So the Turks turned back, and throughout the 1070s started conquering more and more and more of that, what is now Turkey. And the Byzantine Empire never regained those lands. Those were very important lands for the Byzantine Empire for raising troops. Much of the manpower of the empire had come from there. So with that loss at the Battle of Manzikert, the ultimate fate of the Byzantine Empire is pretty much sealed, although it will take 360 some years for that all to play out, or even more, till 1453. The Turks did not just stop at the Byzantine Empire, but they swept down and conquered the Holy Land and passed on into Egypt, as you can see from that last slide, the Sinai Peninsula, at least. And it is their conquering of this land which spawns the outcry, which leads to the request from the Byzantine Empire for forces from the west to come and liberate the Holy Land, basically help the Eastern Christian Empire against the hostile Muslim forces. Now, many of these lands had been in Muslim hands for centuries, since the 600s, mid-600s. So it's not the fact that the Muslims held Jerusalem, but that what caused or leads to the Crusades is this new group, the Seljuk Turks, who are much less tolerant, have taken over. And according to contemporary sources, both Jewish and Muslim, this was a period of slaughter and vandalism, of economic hardship, and the uprooting of populations. So there was an outcry for alleviation, help on this front. Pope St. Gregory VII, as early as 1074, had realized the consequences of this loss at Manzikert and had asked the European princes and kings to send help to the Byzantine Empire, but this went without effect, given all the other troubles that were afflicting his papacy. He was not able to convince the Emperor, Holy Roman Emperor, for instance, to send any help. In 1095, the Byzantine Emperor Alexios I Komnenos approached Pope Urban II and asking for a crusade to liberate the Christians from intolerant Islamic control. And at the Council of Clermont, where this was first put forward, the cry Deus vult, God wills it, went up, and the preaching of the Crusades began. And by 1098, the First Crusade will arrive in Jerusalem and have military success, although not always. Some of the things that happened were clearly offensive and there was no way to reconcile them with proper Christian behavior. Pope Urban II, the one who called that First Crusade, was a pope that continued the Gregorian reform started by, actually before Pope St. Gregory VII, Hildebrand. It happened when he was the equivalent of Secretary of State earlier in the century. But he continued them, including halting lay investiture, although he's more cautious in how he was not as steadfast as Gregory VII had been. His successor, Paschal II, devised what would ultimately be the solution to this controversy. He devised a solution that was ultimately accepted by the kings of England and France, which allowed the kings to bestow only the symbols of secular power. And as a secular ruler, the bishop would owe the king an allegiance. So certain parts of what is now Germany for centuries, the Holy Roman Empire, were little duchies, little territories, and some of them were ruled by the local bishop and not a secular duke or prince. And the handing on of these symbols of secular power, let's say a crown, for instance, that was allowed, but no handing over of the ring, which is the authority